how powerful are designers?
I mean, I completely agree with the being aware of the consequences of what you do. I think we can try to steer that boat in the right direction. Ultimately, we can't really foresee the consequences, especially if in the long run. I mean, I would think that when you designed the I Love New York logo, you wouldn't know that it's gonna be copied.
It wasn't for New York City, it was for New York State.
Yeah. New York State. Yeah.
Initially, it's New York City's logo now, but it was for New York State. I mean, so you have no sense of what, sometimes you do things and you have no sense of what the outcome will be. I've had so many experiences like that you don't.
For instance?
Well, I mean, I've been talking about the High Line a lot because the intent of the High Line was completely an altruistic attempt to design an identity that would first help a park get built, to do the signage and work with the architects and the landscape designers and make this terrific place in New York City, which is a terrific place. I can't deny it. On the other hand, we had no responsibility for real estate developers coming in and raising the property values in the area, or the fact that the closest people who live to it or really live in low-income housing and never go up to it, because not only don't they go there and think it's not for them, they think good design is not for them because it becomes codified by who goes there and what the neighborhood is like around it. That's not the intent of the people that develop the High Line, but that can be partially the result of it. And I find these things more and more that there is an unintended result with the way an audience views quote unquote good design. It may mean something else. It may mean elitism to them. It may mean exclusion, and these are things that designers never talk about and don't totally understand. But when you work in the public realm, I mean, I was on the design commission in New York City for 6 years and got involved in all kinds of civic projects, and was horrified when neighborhoods wanted to, use the tax money to put up, really horrific things that, as a designer, made me want to cringe. But then you wonder, well, this is their neighborhood, or you watch the value judgment made on the tax basis of how something is going to be allotted, where one side of Houston Street has a different curb from the other side because it's in a lower tax break, and they don't get the one that has the granite flakes. I mean, design is a tricky business because it's not just trying to do good. It has to do with what your interpretation of that is in relationship to an entire community that may not feel the same way. You can't make people behave. You can't prescribe for them. So that in this thing of designers being completely conscious about what they're doing and absolutely the right altruistic spirit, you can have negative consequences that you're not even aware of. It's quite a responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. Chip?
Well, I'd have a chance to write it again then, of course. If something goes wrong,
well, you have to recognize it, and you have to have an ability to begin to figure out how things got codified. It's sort of like at the beginning when I was an early designer and I hated Helvetica because I thought it represented the Vietnam War, and I'm not kidding. All the corporations had Helvetica, so therefore it meant that they were evil doers, and it's the way a person within a culture interprets something that's actually neutral, that has nothing to do with anything, but you bring that to it. So I can imagine a group of people living on 26th Street and 8th Avenue going over and going, oh, that place has got all that fancy signage, or whatever.
GP.
Well, I'm a book cover designer, so that's kind of weird in the context of all of this. But what I'm often asked is, do I ever have to design a cover for a book that I don't like? And I've been doing this nonstop for 31 years, and so the answer is, yeah. But that's different than having to design a cover for a book that I'm morally against. And I've never had to do that. The publisher I work for, Knopf, where our editor-in-chief, Sonny Mehta, he is frankly, very morally minded, and we don't publish Bill O'Reilly, we don't publish Ann Coulter, and all of these horrible people. And I feel so incredibly fortunate for that, because I don't really honestly think I'd be able to do that. The other thing I like about designing covers for hardcover books, which is almost entirely what I do, is that hardcover books are never thrown away. Or at least, you know, that's the conventional wisdom. You know, you give it to the church book sale or whatever, but they don't get, you know, destroyed or become landfill. Now, you know, that could be me just sort of kidding myself, so to speak. But I've always enjoyed that, is that they're supposed to be archival. And they're supposed to be saved. And so I've always enjoyed that in terms of being a graphic designer.
I'd like to raise a question about that, which is always interesting. I think there's a difference also between persuasion and offering alternatives to people, between saying, here are the possibilities, and saying, you must do this, tonality and in spirit. What the best thing you could do as a designer is open the world to people in terms of alternative possibilities, it seems. But I was thinking the other day that you cannot produce books anymore to sit on a shelf forever, having been read once, and then enduring another 70 years on your bookshelf in the corner gathering dust. There's no room anymore for that. You can't make any more books. I was just thinking the real problem making books is that they should only be made if they can last forever and continue, like a painting perhaps, to be nourishing long after they're produced, and not to sit on a lot of these bookshelves are full of books that are 50 years old, and they'll never be looked at again. And one day they will be dumped in the ocean. And so the question of, is it really good to make hardcover books now, or shall we say we have to teach people to read in another way and access these things in another way because the world is coming to an end? But like everything else, all these judgments always have alternative consequences, and we can't read those very easily.
Well, I totally argue in favor of the hardcover book, and you publish hardcover books of your work, and I think that's great, and I think you should. You know, what if I want to read it again? What if I want to read it every year?
You can't.
Well, I don't know if I agree with that. I think hardcover books are a record. This is going to sound incredibly pretentious, but I do think that they are a record of our existence here on Earth. And of course, you know, now you've got video and all this other stuff, but that can all be turned off with a switch, and you can't turn these off with a switch. And I do really value that.
You have designed, I don't know, 1,500, 2,000
I lost
book
count.
covers.
I
A lot,
lost count.
as a matter of
But
fact.
over
Jurassic
over
Park.
1,500.
Stefan, you did the Rolling Stones covers, and David Byrne, and you did 1,500 covers. So you all did a lot of book covers, album covers. It's unbelievable. So my question is, do you think that people buy albums and books because of the cover? So what influence in the decision-making process of a buyer has the cover?
Well, now for sure. I mean, let's say if we talk about the album cover that, you know, Paula designed many more of than I did, but I designed some. Or if you go to the largest vinyl store in New York, if you go to Rough Trade in Brooklyn, you will see that nobody other than me who is in there was around the first time when vinyl was alive, and the first time they're all in their 20s. And many of them will buy it because with the cover, and many of them will keep it in the individual wrapper and will download the music digitally. and basically preserve this as an artifact. But it's a different audience. It's a much smaller audience. It's a much more collecting audience. It's in many ways, for me, it's not that an interesting of an audience because it's not a mass audience. I think that, meaning I think what Chip was talking about, but I'm sure Paula at Columbia was interested in, but also what I was interested in was like that you designed something that was in everybody's
Well,
home.
it's a funny thing. I'm sort of shocked by this because actually, like all these albums that I forgot I designed have been resurrected, and that I find that the thing that really the ones that I think they would want to find, which are really the major recording artists, are not the ones they pull out. They're jazz albums, and they're obscure, and I get people that I don't know send me like Instagrams of finding them in record stores. It's almost like a crazy hunt about it that I really am shocked by, because I mean I dumped mine a long time ago, and Stefan's right, they're kids, they're in their 20s, and they love the form, and I think it has to do with, there was this odd connection that I always missed of the notion of playing the music and holding the album. It's sort of a very specific thing.
It's a perfect combination. Absolutely. Much better than the music video. The music video I always felt gave away too much. It's sort of like almost like, if you hear a song the first time with the video, I have that stupid video in my head. I don't want the video in my head. I just want a little bit of a direction, which the cover is the perfect thing of, maybe you see what the band looks like, but you definitely get a feel what they're about. And then the rest you make up as you listen to the music.
It becomes a theater of the mind.
Yes.
And the audience person is building this stuff in their head. It's like the way radio works and why radio still exists. Because you have to, you're picturing the person or the people playing the music or whatever. And I think also on the page with prose, that's very much a theater of the mind. Totally interesting.
And it uses one art form to package another art form, and that there's something so total about that experience. I mean, you talk about great things to design and things that are bad for you. That was so wonderful, because there was something generous in the scale of it, in the feel of it, and then what it contained. It was an amazing thing to do.
And what it contained is highly emotional, but not visual. But we are making the visual for it, which I think is ultimately the reason why the album cover was always a better medium than, let's say, the film poster. Because the film poster is packaging something that's visual already, and it's much more promotional. It's even more promotional. So the film poster is, you're reducing an incredible visual experience down to a single image, which is just a much more boring task than to take something non-visual and visualize it.
That's right. That's true.